Hey guys, welcome to Irk's Collectibles. For those of you who've never seen my face, this is my face. Face reveal for you. Just about to hit 300 subscribers, so thank you so very much to all who have subscribed. For today's video, we're doing a tier list, and this tier list is 8 action figure toy companies that I just want to rank. Now keep in mind, there are certain companies I did not include. I'm trying to include ones that I've had experience with, just to give it a fair judgment and ranking. So without further ado, let's start that tier list. So, starting off our list, we've got the SH Figuarts. Now this is one that I don't have tons of experience with. However, I am very impressed with a lot of their lines, particularly the Star Wars ones. Those are the ones that I've looked into the most. I've not owned one personally, but I do have friends that have owned them, so I have looked at them, held them, seen kind of the durability, articulation, that sort of thing. And, you know, they are a higher end action figure, so with that in mind, they should have a higher end quality to them, and I personally believe they do. Now again, I've not owned them, so I don't have perhaps the most in-depth opinion, but I do have some experience with them. And so for the price point, articulation, durability, I'd say, well, I would say A, but where I don't have tons of experience with them, I'll go ahead and put them in the B tier. Feel free to yell at me in the comments for that one if you want. Next up, we've got Medicom Toy, more widely known as the Mafex line that they produce. Now, I've owned one Mafex figure. It was the Dark Knight Rises figure. And personally, while I think it looked incredible, the durability was not quite there for me, for how expensive it was. Right now, Mafex are running for typically about $100, a little more, and so they are, again, with SH Figuarts on that higher end, though I think they are a higher price point than the Figuarts. So the lack of durability, you know, it didn't break, but it just felt like if I pressed very hard on the joints or even tried to move the limbs much, it felt kind of brittle. And so, to me, that was very disappointing for the amount of money that I paid for it. So, I know this is going to be controversial, but I'm going to put them in the C tier. Next up, we've got Diamond Select. Now, this is one I have quite a bit of experience with. If you've seen the channel, you've seen quite a few of my videos have to do with Diamond Select. I collect their Lord of the Rings line. I've purchased some of their Invincible line and the Hulk figures as well. And Diamond, they're kind of a tough one. They have pros and cons for sure. I think if you are a statue collector, I think Diamond is a great company. They have a lot of high quality statues, mini busts, that sort of thing, that I have many a time considered buying. And they do a lot of the lines that I love: Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Marvel, DC. And so they have a wide range of licenses. For their action figures though, they are in typically the 7-inch scale, which I don't mind, but a lot of people are turned off by that. It's kind of a toss-up. I feel like each line is different, but for example, the Invincible figures are very, I wouldn't say low budget, but they feel cheap. So I only have Omni-Man and Invincible, but the articulation is quite awful, to be honest, on those. They are going for the animated look, so they do look cartoonish, which, you know, they're trying to, so that's fine. For the Lord of the Rings line, if you've watched my videos, you'll know kind of what I think of those. I like them a lot, but they do leave something to be desired, to be honest. I think a lot of the face sculpts, I don't know if it's the sculpt or the paint, but they don't really quite have the likenesses for most of them. There are some. I feel like Gimli is quite good, maybe because his beard covers most of his face, but others like Legolas is a little off. Gandalf is quite good, but his eye paint is really bad. So there's little things that kind of take away from Diamond. And typically their articulation isn't great, but with the Hulk figures, it's awesome. So I just feel like there isn't a great consistency with Diamond. And for that, for the action figure side of Diamond, I'm gonna have to put them in the B tier because they have great lines, great IPs, and a lot of things they do good. Like, I think the Lord of the Rings line, the Sauron Build-A-Figure is incredible. The Orc is awesome. The Uruk-hai are awesome. So there's certain figures that are fantastic, and then others that aren't quite there. So I think B is fair for Diamond. Next up, we've got McFarlane Toys. Now, I'm a huge DC fan, so I collect a lot of DC Multiverse, and at first, when they started the line, I really was not a fan of McFarlane. I had the Jon Snow
My queen
Game of Thrones figure from them. That was about it. And I was not impressed by the articulation in that figure. When they bought the DC license for 7-inch figures, I was not very impressed with that first wave. That Batman was pretty bad. The Superman I liked, but he did feel very brittle and the articulation wasn't great. So I did pick up that Superman, but I was very on the fence with the line. And the line's got its issues. Let's not shirk that. There's plenty of problems. We had for about a year, it felt like, the eyes looking to the right or left, I can't remember, but it's very distracting and very odd choice. Sometimes Todd seems like he just makes decisions and doesn't really consider the consequences. Anyways, certain decisions that they do are odd. For example, the amount of Batman figures. Now, I understand that Batman sells all the time, and that's what Todd always says, so I get it, but at the same time, there is such an overload of Batman with the DC Multiverse line that it is frustrating. However, we're on year 3 now, I believe, of the McFarlane DC Multiverse license, and I've been blown away by a lot of their figures. There's tons of deep cut. For example, Swamp Thing, Etrigan the Demon, Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, you've got Azrael, there's so many I could list. Constantine. There's a really awesome pull from a lot of those more obscure DC characters, and as a huge DC fan, that's something I love. So while there is, probably 50% Batman or more, now that we're 3 years in, there's plenty of diversity to the line. And another thing is the price point. They've kept it at $20, and I know this year they're going up a couple dollars, but even the Build-A-Figures are still $25, so those didn't go up yet. Hopefully they don't go up more. They've kept a consistent price, and we'll get into price more with some of these other companies, but it's a breath of fresh air that McFarlane is looking out for us, the collector, it feels like, trying to give us that good deal while also giving us quality figures. And another thing to be said, almost every figure is a new mold. Not many companies do that. Now I will say there is a lot of repaints, repackaging, but that is something a toy company needs to do to survive, pretty much, a lower end toy company. So I will definitely, look past some of those repaints when almost every wave has new sculpting. And there's a really big company that does not do that we'll get into later. So that's big bonus points for McFarlane. Great prices still. Awesome sculpt. The paint really is lacking a lot of the times, so that's a negative. But I think overall, sculpt, articulation has improved a lot with McFarlane. Pricing, and for me, DC, awesome, deep roster of characters that they're really pulling from. That's got to be an A tier for me. Next up is Mattel. Mattel, my experience with them is also DC, back from the DC Multiverse when they owned the line. I was not collecting when they were doing the DC Universe Classics. And I know that's a line that has a big soft spot in many DC fans' mind because they had such a deep pull of characters. You know, they had really obscure characters and it ran for many, many years. So for DC fans, that was the line to collect. Personally, Mattel, I don't really like their, I don't know, the sculpts just feel so outdated. Like their last year with the DC Multiverse line, it's kind of when I started collecting, and they had improved by then, but a lot of their sculpts were really bad. You know, the DC Universe Classics had that cut in the thigh that I think looks horrible, and I know that they started that line earlier. I just don't think Mattel is near the standard that most other toy companies are. And you know, I don't currently collect anything Mattel, so this is me talking about figures from at least 3 or 4 years ago. So, you know, maybe I'm being unfair. I know that they do the He-Man line, a lot of wrestling figures, and I feel like those seem to be better quality than the ones that I've seen. But from my personal experience with Mattel, not a lot to write home about, to be honest. I think they're worse than Diamond as far as articulation and sculpt, so I'm gonna have to put them in the C. Next up is Mezco 112. This is another one I've never purchased from, but I have seen them in person. I have kind of, you know, played with them, for lack of a better word. I've seen the articulation, and something they do really well is soft goods. A lot of soft good materials for if it's superheroes costumes or what have you. From what I've seen, they do excellent figures of Wolverine. Wolverine looks awesome, but I don't want all of my figures to have Wolverine's body type, and I'm probably gonna get heat for this, but every single figure from Mezco 112 looks the exact same body type. They're all very stocky, very buff, like short looking figures, and it just looks weird. It looks like children almost for some of them. Like I said, Wolverine, he's a small, stocky guy, so it works very well. But when you've got Batman looking like that, it just looks weird. Maybe I'm the only one that thinks this, but I do not like the proportions of Mezco 112. I know they're action figures, but I like to have some sense of realism, or at least an attempt at correct anatomy. And so I feel like their weird proportions really turn me off quite a bit. I know they have tons of accessories, and not all of them use that buck. It's more of the comic figures, I think, that do, but I just can't look past that, and I just think they're hot garbage. I know I'm gonna get tons of hate for that, and I'm a little unfair because I've never actually owned one, so take that as you will, but they're not doing it for me. Alright guys, next up we've got Neca. Neca is kind of in the middle of top tier top tier action figures and lower end action figures. It's kind of at that currently $40 price range, and I think they're killing it. I love Neca. Now, only 2 years ago they were at the lower $30 range. Now they're almost at $40, so that is a little disheartening. You know, inflation is real, but at the same time, going up like almost $10 in a couple years is pretty rough. However, the quality of Neca is incredible. I've got the Frankenstein figure and the Dracula, which I will be dropping a review of soon. I've got the Last Ronin Ninja Turtle that I did a review on, and the Kratos from God of War. So I don't have tons of Neca figures. However, the ones that I have really blown me away. I love their sculpt, to their paint apps, to their accessories. Neca is top tier in my opinion. They've got, spoiler, I mean, the Last Ronin figure had accessories upon accessories. The paint apps are amazing, and the articulation's great. To me, they look the best, they feel the best when you articulate them. They don't feel like they're gonna break, and the packaging is fantastic. They've got a lot of great stuff. I really would love to get into their Predator figures. Those look fantastic. You know, if you're a big horror fan, they've got you covered there. I do wish they had more of the IPs that I love more, like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, DC. And I know they do have some of, the bigger scale DC, things like that, but what they do really well. The Turtles figures they do are fantastic. I'm loving the Universal Monsters line. I need to pick up the Wolfman. I can't praise them enough. I know that price is a little much, but they really do justify the price in my opinion because there's such a good range of articulation. The paint, the sculpt, everything is top notch. And that brings us to our last entry for today. I know I left out quite a few. Beast Nation, I believe it's called, is one that I have no experience with. That's one I don't like from what I've seen, but I don't know the figures well enough. Another one is the Four Horsemen Studios. I've heard tons of good things about the Mythic Legions line, but I've never collected any, so I didn't feel like I could comment very well on those. But here we are, the last one of the big bad, or the big good, however you want to see it, Hasbro line, or Hasbro as a company, not the line. Now, I collect mainly Star Wars The Black Series from Hasbro. I've been collecting them since 2020. I became a collector during the pandemic, and it's been downhill ever since. Just kidding. No, but I've spent a ton of money with Hasbro, and I've got quite a few thoughts on them. I have dipped my feet in the Marvel Legends line as well a little bit. I know they've got Power Rangers, they've got Transformers, which is huge for them, and a few others that I can't quite remember. But anyways, G.I. Joe, another big one. So they've got some of the biggest lines in toy collecting, a lot of that 80s nostalgia, and I love Star Wars. Now, the Black Series line, when I started collecting, was lacking in a lot of my favorite characters. I'm a big prequel fan. I grew up with the prequels. And I always felt like they were lacking in those. But then in the next year or two, they really started pulling a lot from the prequels, and it was a great time to be a Black Series fan. We were getting prequels, Mandalorian, original trilogy figures just coming constantly. And then about a year ago, Hasbro kind of went crazy to me. And again, I know inflation is big. It's affecting everyone. Of course, it's affecting toy companies with shipping overseas and everything. There's tons of factors that play into that. But when you have companies like McFarlane holding off raising their prices for 2 years during pandemic, you've got Neca raising their prices a little bit, but they justify that in my opinion with the amazing accessories and everything they offer. And then you've got Hasbro. Now, talking about their Marvel Legends line, they reuse those same Bucky Cap molds over and over and over. Maybe they'll sculpt a new belt, but everything's painted. They don't really sculpt a lot, which is something that kind of bugs me. That being said, they do it to great effect. They do have great articulation. That is a really big thing with Marvel Legends. They've got great paint apps and photoreal face sculpts. Those are incredible. But they keep using those same body bucks over and over again, which to me gets frustrating when they raise their prices sporadically and just weirdly. So, for example, recently they announced the gaming greats Spider-Man 2 from the new Spider-Man 2 video game coming out later this year. And I got excited because I missed out on the first one that's, going for probably hundreds of dollars on the aftermarket now. So I rushed to my toy company that I usually order from. So I go to purchase it, and I see the price for it, and it was like $32 for a basic figure. And I'm looking at it like, is this a deluxe? What is happening? It's just Spider-Man with a web and like 2 sets of hands for $32. And then the same time they announced some other figures that are going for $24.99. Then they've got others that are $28.99. It's just exhausting to try to keep up with their pricing. I don't understand what their justification is with the amount of reuse that they do with the Marvel line. Insane to me that they can ask the collector to spend $10 more for one figure only because he's popular, I guess. But that just bugs me because it's like, so you know he'll sell out, Spider-Man will. So you're giving us a Spider-Man tax, essentially. And anyways, it's just been frustrating. Back to the Black series, the characters that they're choosing. The last year has really just been lackluster. Tons of Mandalorian figures, which makes sense. That was probably their highest selling figure ever when that first season came out. I don't know if that's true, I'm just guessing. But the demand for Mando has been high, so I understand why there's so many Mandos, but at the same time, it's like the prequel figures that they have made have proven to be insanely popular. Any of the Clone Wars figures sold out, and then, this isn't even getting into exclusives, my goodness. Exclusives. Hasbro drives me insane with the pics that they send to exclusives. You got Season 7 Ahsoka sent to Walmart for an exclusive, but then you've got the most random characters that are mainline that nobody wants. It's like, why would you send one of the most sought after figures to Walmart? She sold out in seconds. I was super lucky to be able to get one, but I know she's worth tons of money now. Same thing with Clone Wars Anakin and Obi-Wan sent to Target as exclusive. I could go on about exclusives, but they've just, I feel like the Black series has really gone downhill in the last year and a half. They aren't giving us the range of figures. Like I said, a couple years ago we were getting prequels, original trilogy, and newer stuff as well, and it was satisfying all the camps of Star Wars fans. But now it's like we're lucky to get a wave with half of it's Mandalorian, then you've got a Luke, a Leia, or a Han, and then maybe a prequel, but usually not. And their production speed as well, I don't know. McFarlane's churning these things out like crazy. They'll announce a figure, it's available in a month. Or the Dark Knight figures, they announce it, available in a week. But then Hasbro announces Ki-Adi-Mundi a year ago, and now they finally show pictures of him, but he's still another year out. What is going on? Why is it taking 2 years from when you announce the figure to get him out? Don't give us those teases if it's so far away. At least that's my opinion. And I am being a really complainy, whiny boy, but these are valid points. When they're asking us to spend so much more money now for their figures, all the exclusives are $28.99. The comic line for the Black series, $28.99. Why? I couldn't tell you. I guess the packaging is more expensive. I don't know. And then that's the other thing, packaging. They've just about pissed off all their in-box collectors by these new plastic-free packaging. You're selling plastic toys. I do believe in cutting down waste, particularly damaging waste. And I don't know enough about the subject, but when you take out the plastic from some of these toy boxes, it just raises so many issues. All the scalpers, or not scalpers, all the people that open the boxes and swap them for crappy figures and return them, that just made that 100 times worse. 100 times more likely to happen. Again, the inbox collectors are kind of just screwed. Nobody wants to buy a box and just look at a picture of the figure inside. For me, I open the figures, so I don't really care, but there are certain ones that I would like to keep in box, and it just takes away some of the fun of that certain collectors have. And so they've really just been taking L's the last year. And I don't know what's going on. It's a weird thing. You look at their HasLab things. That Ghost Rider HasLab, an absolute joke. $350 for a car and a figure. What? I don't know. And I don't really buy the Marvel Legends line, so I'm not super upset about that. But I understand why people were. That's a ton of money for so little. And it's weird to me because they sell so much. So it just seems like corporate greed is really taking over Hasbro. They promised the pinless joints for the Marvel Legends, and then they still use the Bucky Cap mold with the pinned joints. Why is that happening? And The Black Series used to be the line that I was super into, but it's really kind of taken the steam out of it for me. I've really slowed down on the Black Series. I did get Wicket recently and Mara Jade, which I'm excited for. There will be a review of her soon. Check out my Wicket review. But anyways, plugs aside, Hasbro's just making it really hard to justify with buying their figures with the prices, and I don't know. There is great quality there, but another thing is like the Black Series, you almost get 0 accessories usually. I know that there's licensing fees and that sort of thing, so I can let some of it slide, but Hasbro, if you would ask me 2 years ago, I would have put it in the S tier. Now, with all the shenanigans, I'm putting it in the C tier. Alright guys, that is my ranking of 8 toy companies. Let me know what you guys think. Am I crazy? Let me know. I want to hear all your opinions too. I love chatting about it in the comments. Let me know if you agree with any of my picks. Let me know which companies you'd like me to include for another video, perhaps. I really appreciate you guys checking this video out. I love talking toys and collectibles, so hit me up in any of the videos, in any of the comments, let me know. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing for other collectible content. Thanks guys, we'll see you later.